to Coromandel to help lift staff wages and repair buildings. A resident of the Coromandel Peninsula township of Kualtunu says a deluge temporarily turned her street into a river. 150 millimetres of rain fell in the 24 hours to yesterday afternoon, and even more in the hills. Nikki Wilson says her neighbours knew all about it.
Their car was floating in the backyard, and their bottom story was getting flooded. Locals saying to us they've never seen anything like it. Huge quantities of water. These things suddenly happen and they suddenly go away again too, with a bit of damage left behind.
Nikki Wilson. Roading contractors will this morning start clearing a major slip blocking State Highway 25 between Kualtunu and Whitianga. The Thames Coromandel Civil Defence Controller Gary Towler says it's a gnarly one.
It's what they call an under and an overslip combined, and it's just technically quite a difficult one to clear. But they've got some big equipment up there, and they're quite confident they'll be able to get it sorted today.
Gary Towler says there are no reports of damage to property, but some basements and garages were flooded. He says council staff will be out assessing smaller roads and bridges in the area today. Young orators will take to the stage in Palmerston North this morning for the Ngā Manu Kōrero National Secondary School Speech Competition. 60 students representing 15 regions are competing in Te Reo Māori and English categories, covering both prepared and impromptu speaking. The chairperson of the host committee, Nick Whanautoi, says the event has been a beacon for 54 years in revitalising Te Reo Māori.
Very important to us that our students excel in oratory, but not just that, the responsibilities that they have to their own whānau, hapu, iwi, and communities. I believe it's a stepping stone. Mani Kōrero is a stepping stone for our youth to become the leaders of the future.
Nick Whanautoi, the winners of the two-day event, will be announced tomorrow night. One of the most influential photographers of the 20th century, Robert Frank, has died aged 94. He was born in Switzerland but emigrated to the US in 1947. Frank was best known for his work The Americans, a book that chronicled a journey across America at the height of the Cold War. It was widely condemned as depicting a country sharply at odds with the America portrayed by Hollywood and the advertising industry. And that's the news. Now with RNZ Sport, here's Brenton Van Nistelrooy.
Good morning. Auckland teenager Tupou Naufi has claimed her maiden medal at the World Paraswimming Championships in London. The 18-year-old has snatched silver in the women's 100-metre backstroke S8. Naufi secured her medal just moments after Sophie Pascoe had won her second gold of the championships. She has won the women's 100-metre backstroke S9 in a near world record time, less than 24 hours after winning the 100-metre freestyle. Pascoe and Naufi will compete in a further 2 events each in London. The Warriors women will be without their major recruit for the start of the second season of the NRLW. Decorated Kiwi Ferns player Honey Hereme isn't available for Saturday's opening round match against the Roosters in Melbourne, as she's away supporting her seriously ill mother. The Warriors are hopeful that Hereme will be able to return for their first home game against the Dragons next week. Canberra back rower Hudson Young has been banned for 8 NRL games for making dangerous contact with the eyes of Warriors back Adam Pompey, as despite Pompey claiming he didn't feel any contact with his face and what happened on the field should stay on the field. But the judiciary believes his evidence may have been influenced by a sense of loyalty to a fellow player. Meanwhile, Kiwis forward Jared Waerea-Hargreaves has been cleared of a careless high tackle and is free to play for the Roosters in their qualifying final against the Rabbitohs on Friday night. And scorching temperatures for the start of the All Blacks training camp in Kashiwa. The mercury has risen into the mid-30s for New Zealand's first training run since arriving in Japan for the Rugby World Cup. But All Blacks coach Steve Hansen says it's not an issue.
Hydration's key, but a sunblock and a real good hat. So nothing to complain about here, boy.
Steve Hansen. Koina ngā pūrongo ha kina kina.
Take the pulse of the day's news every weeknight at 10. I think New Zealanders love having access to quality news and information. I mean, the real problem is that the advertising money has gone, mostly gone to Facebook and Google.
Live with local, national and international stories and a slice of creativity.
Particularly in this week, Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, I'm sure people will understand that here's someone trying or giving something a go.
Up to date if you're up late. Lately with Karen Hay every weeknight from 10 on RNZ National.
We are funded through New Zealand On Air. Now the short forecast from Met Service updated about half an hour ago and taking us to midnight tonight at this stage. Northland, Auckland and Coromandel, cloudy periods, isolated showers. Waikato to Whanganui, also Bay of Plenty in the central high country, mainly fine. A shower or two in the west from afternoon. Gisborne, Hawke's Bay and Wairedapa fine this morning, isolated showers from this afternoon. Manawatu to Wellington, also Nelson, Marlborough, Canterbury and Otago. Areas of cloud this morning, otherwise fine. Bulla and Westland, a few showers this morning, otherwise mostly fine. Fiordland and Southland, a few showers for Fiordland and coastal Southland, fine elsewhere. Chatham Islands, cloudy periods and a period of rain this morning. Around our main centres for Wednesday, Auckland, cloudy periods. There could be a shower or two, southwesterlies and 15 the high. Tauranga, fine, southwesterlies and 17. Hamilton, cloudy periods, southwesterlies 15. Wellington, fine apart from morning and evening cloud. Brisk southerlies dying out this evening, 12. Christchurch, fine with a frosty start. Brisk southerlies easing in the afternoon, turning northerly in the evening, 12 is the high. And Dunedin, a few morning showers, then fine, southwesterlies dying out this afternoon, and a high also of 12. You're listening to RNZ National. It's nearly 10 minutes past 8.
Kia ora koutou katoa, and you're with Morning Report. Well, local body voting papers will be turning up in letterboxes in a couple of weeks, and on October the 12th, we'll know who's going to be in charge of our local councils and boards. Here on Morning Report, we'll be looking at the mayoralty races in some of our main centres. This morning, we're looking at Christchurch, where Leanne Dalzell is seeking a third term as mayor. She's with me in the studio, along with her two main rivals, the veteran social activist John Minto, and a newcomer to local body politics, Christchurch businessman Daryl Park. There are some big issues for Christchurch voters: progress on the rebuild, rates, asset sales, and whether Christchurch residents can once again drink their prized water without added chlorine. Welcome to you all. Morena. I want to start first with a leadership question, and it's a story which is leading our bulletins today about the Christchurch call. It bears the name of your city. Our opposition leader Simon Bridges has questioned whether the New Zealand government should be putting as much priority on it and whether it is a concern of everyday New Zealanders. I'll start with you, Leanne Dalzell. Do you believe that there is too much emphasis on the Christchurch call at the expense of other things like measles and other problems?
I think it's unreasonable for somebody to suggest that it's a priority one over the other. I think most New Zealanders stopped on that day. They were horrified to find that Facebook live streamed that atrocity. It took them longer to take it down than it took the police to track the offender down, to ram into his car, arrest him and take him into custody. That is appalling. Now, the Prime Minister's taken a leadership position. Sometimes you have to do that, and this is one of those occasions. So I was actually quite shocked to hear that news
John
this
Minto,
morning.
do you agree?
I absolutely agree. I think this is a situation where New Zealand's had this appalling event occur, and if we can carry a message from that around the world that prevents anything like this happening in future, then we're punching well above our weight, and that's what we should do.
Okay, Daryl Park, do you believe that too much emphasis is put on the Christchurch call, or is it about right?
I think it's about right. I think the situation we've got is a major atrocity of huge proportions, and we need to learn from it and deal with it better, because, as Leanne has said, certain things didn't work the way they should have in the time that it took to bring it to action.
All right, very good. We're warmed up. Let's get into it. Leanne Dalzell, I want to start with you. A lot of focus in Christchurch is on the anchor projects, the stadium, the new buildings, the new library. Yet I want to put it to you that your council under your leadership has failed in its duty to some of the most vulnerable in terms of social housing. 930 units without floor or ceiling insulation, and they were supposed to have that in July 2016. Have you taken your eye off the ball?
No, and that's not the case. I mean, the criteria around insulating these units is pushed out to 2023 for social housing, and it's not something that I'm particularly happy about. And I guess the focus of our attention was on establishing a framework for running our social housing.
Have these people been cold over winter or not?
Look, there is no question that people have been affected. We had one of the individuals concerned who was so concerned he's actually running for the mayoralty on the back of it, and he came to the council. And off the back of that, we have asked for a report to come to council, and it will come this week or next week, and it will be coming to council on the basis of fast-tracking some of the insulation work, not the insulation work, but getting the units warm over the winter. What he talked about was an incredible bill. We were left in a difficult position by successive governments, 2 governments now, coinciding with the earthquakes. They took away our right to access income-related rental subsidy. We've established a new format for running our social housing. We've never drawn on rates for
John Minto,
it,
you're shaking your head. I want to come to you, then I'll come to you, Daryl. John Minto, has the council taken its eye off the ball for the most vulnerable?
Oh, absolutely it has. I think we've now got... we're now going backwards with social housing, just the numbers of social houses, for example. Yes, we lost some in the earthquakes, but every time a council rental housing complex needs upgrading or renovating, it's just boarded up and closed down. We've got 52 units at the moment in that condition. Cecil Courts on Brougham Street, and in Somerville we've got Carey Street. So 52 units, they're just closed up because the council refuses to use any rates money to do them up. And what we're saying is the government has given Christchurch $300 million as of the last election. The Prime Minister said this is for Christchurch to decide how it should be used. The council says that is exactly what she said.
I know she said that, but that's not, the money's not available for social housing. And
I'm sorry. When the Prime Minister says to the whole country that this money is for the people of Christchurch to decide how it should be used.
No, it's for regeneration activities, and that's been decided.
Well,
okay, let's go to Daryl Park.
The money is there, what I'm saying, and we do not need to. It doesn't. So need to come out of rates.
you would fight to get that money, which is ring-fenced for something else. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, Daryl Park.
Coming back to it, it's systemic failure. To be brutally frank, it's got to be affordable, and it's not because of increases. One lump sum of 20% increase recently. The other one is they're not dry, and they're inappropriate for, as a landlord, council as a landlord cannot adjudicate over other landlords and say you're not appropriate when we're not appropriate ourselves.
Okay, the bill for this is in the millions of dollars. Are you comfortable with spending up to $6 million that you can have to borrow? The council would have to borrow. Would you do that?
It's a must-have. Human right to actually have dry, appropriate accommodation if you're the landlord and you're supplying it.
So that you would be comfortable with the borrowing? This is not something that would come out of rates, because you've said rates would have to be zero.
It could come out of rates. It could be a must-have project. I've always said my zero-rated increase on rates would be about must-have projects.
So what else would you cut then? Because if you have zero rates, you're going to have to cut a large amount of spending out of the council. And you're now saying you'll spend money on fixing social houses.
Need to. I mean, it's a case of as a landlord, you're required to.
But we don't spend rates on social housing now.
The other projects would be a proliferation of the stadium. The stadium there's money put aside for that, so it's already there as part of the government.
All right, well, that's a good place to pick up on the stadium, Leandalzell. This has been a long-standing issue. Will there be a stadium, a covered stadium, with a decent capacity for Christchurch?
Yes, there will. And the reason for that is that the government has allocated, under my watch, $300 million for Christchurch. $220 million of that is allocated to the multi-use arena that it will be. So this arena, when it is established, is going to be supported by both council and government.
How many seats?
I've said that that's in the investment case that is being put together at the moment, and will go to central government in the next few weeks.
Okay, let me put it another way. How often does it need to be full to capacity?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, what I mean by that is that if it's 30,000, 35,000 seat stadium, it may not ever be full, except for All Black Test matches.
It depends what it's being used for. So there will be, obviously it's not going to be just a stadium for rugby. It is going to be a multi-use arena that will attract many events. It will have other elements to it, and that's what the business case, the investment case, is all about. Government has to sign off on it, and I'm confident that they will.
Okay, I'll come to Darryl in a second. Let's go to John Minto, because you oppose the stadium, right?
Yeah, if there was a genuine business case for the stadium, the private sector would build it. There isn't a business case for it. And why would we sell assets, because that's what's being talked about? Why would we sell our assets, which are bringing in income, to reduce rates in favour of building an asset which is going to be a constant drain on taxpayers? This is going to be, on ratepayers. Sorry,
but John, isn't this about the community, the spirit of the community, that building communities together, bringing people together? Stadiums are a social good, aren't they?
They can be a social good, but the stadium should go to the back of the queue for funding. We've got this enormous, this problem with our council housing and social. We've got a social housing waiting list in Christchurch of over 1,000, and the council is now 500 units short of what it had before the earthquake. Okay. So we can rebuild Lancaster Park, but we're not rebuilding our council housing.
Darryl Park, what's your position on the stadium? And you do have some role with the Crusaders, right?
On the board of Crusaders and Canterbury Rugby, but it's not about sport. It's been mentioned. It's a multifaceted, multi-purpose arena, and it's other events. We need it for the well-being and the betterment of our city. If we don't have that, we're only talking social housing, we're doomed. We need to have that stadium, the multi-purpose arena. We also need to have the convention centre, which is on target for next year. So these are fundamental to our way forward. If we don't get them, we've got a problem.
It's about momentum, and the truth is,
the problem I've got is this has taken 3 years.
Darryl, you finish quickly, then I'll come to you again.
Business case has taken 3 years to get to where it is now, and we still haven't got the business case completed. So the delay is tantamount to our way forward.
Quick response from Leanne to that.
Last year, the government signed off on the Christchurch Regeneration Acceleration Fund. So we didn't have the money from central government before then. So Darryl's just completely off the planet as usual in that regard.
No, I'm not.
But what I'm saying is that there are a lot of private sector businesses, who've invested heavily in the central city with an expectation that multi-use arena will be built and it will be delivered. And I want to make sure that their investment does pay off.
Okay, I want to Heavens above, what about people in their houses having to put bubble wrap on their windows? They come before the stadium. They must do, because Christchurch is bigger than that.
The stadium is an absolute issue. It's not about rugby.
It is absolutely.
It's about all events.
Rugby is
the same thing with the convention centre, bringing critical mass into this city. And if we haven't got that, we haven't got prosperity.
Let's just hear a final comment from John, then I'm going to have a quick fire question to you all. So just carry on, John, for a second.
Rugby will be the core. Will be the core business of the stadium. And this year,
there's only 17 events.
We've got a rugby stadium now which has a capacity of around 20,000. There was only
17,000.
Once this year, right? What's even worse? Once this year was it filled to capacity. And we're building a brand new stadium.
Okay. I want to have a quick fire question to you all. I'll start with you, Darryl.
Yes.
Should the Crusaders drop their name? And bear in mind, you're on the Crusaders board, but it's an interesting...
Well, I'm part of that process, so it would be inappropriate for me, and it's a process that's still going through.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm part of that.
Here's my follow-up question then. So if you were to become mayor, you would leave all these positions that are associated with the Crusaders?
I've been on record as saying if I'm mayor, I would be off the boards that I'm on, the travel, the 2 rugby boards, and of course hospitality. I'll withdraw from the hospitality
And you don't
industry.
Want to offer a personal opinion on an ethical issue?
I don't see that it's an ethical issue. I think what we've got here is a brand that is supported by, and it's come out in the surveys, by 80% of the public. It's been manoeuvred in terms of the guard, the sword. It's now a fundamental, just a word. But at this point in time, we're still going through the process of identifying whether it's appropriate or not. And of course, our market is global now. And so the offshore markets sometimes dictate. it's one that will be decided upon at the end of the year.
Leanne Dalzell?
We have the best provincial rugby team in the entire world. So whatever the name is, the brand sits in behind it. It's red and black. You know, it's an relentless pursuit
Is that a yes
of
or a no?
excellence. It's straight from there. I'm saying that it is a decision for the Crusaders themselves.
Okay, but do you have a personal view on it? Because we're trying to get to the heart of who you are as a person.
I do have a personal view. I personally hope they do change the name. I understand that they couldn't make that change in the lead up to the season just completing because they had all of the sponsorship deals. But I'm hoping they do the right thing. It is a hard issue.
Any ideas on a new name?
No. And the underlying issue, though, and I want people to know what the Crusaders stand for. They stand for a relentless pursuit of excellence, all in the red and black.
John
And that's
Minto,
their
your
brand.
position on this?
I think it would be really good for the name to change, and I think it should be a change that reflects the local area. So New Zealand's a grown-up country now. Canterbury's a grown-up region. We don't need to borrow these names from overseas. We can develop our own local brand, which I think would better reflect the people of Canterbury.
All right. I want to come to the issue of around rates, the nitty-gritty and asset sales. I'll start with you first, Daryl Park. You've said you want zero rate increases. I don't know if there's any other council in the country proposing zero rates. Why would you propose that at a time, or cutbacks in spending at a time when the economies are slowing, when in fact...
Because in the last 6 years, there's been 49% increase in rates. We've got the highest rate base
But zero
in the country.
rates? Nothing?
Going back 20 years it's been since there's been a zero budget
And how much
process.
would that mean the council would have to shave in spending on services that it provides?
About 100 million over 3 years.
You're going to cut out $100 million of spending in 3 years?
Yes.
And you believe that is possible?
Yes, with my background in change management and dealing with business and coming on board with the council as a business entity for the first time in 40 years, yes. There's some business principles that need to be brought in here.
What will you cut?
And from that point of view,
Just name
it's
one
about
thing.
it's about
I think Leanne's got a fair
Forward
point. Can you
non-forward.
just give us one example or a couple of examples of what you would cut?
what I would cut. I would cut non-essential services.
Like
libraries?
No, libraries are
pools?
a must-have.
Swimming pools?
But I'm not going to be drawn into this.
Well, no, but you do need to be
because-
drawn
because-
into this
because-
because the people of Christchurch need to have a rough idea. If you're just going to say, trust me, I'm going to go through it line by line and make cuts, and don't worry, they need to have a rough idea of what you're going to cut.
There's a raft of community spend that sits within council. Like neighbourhood barbecues.
And how much is that
How
spent?
much will that save?
Again, there are a proliferation of those budgets that sit there.
No, but how
Okay,
much?
fair
Seriously.
enough. Let's go to Leanne now.
Seriously,
Leanne,
we
does-
support Neighbourhood Week. I mean, for goodness sake, it's a couple of $1,000s for a group of communities, streets to come together and have a neighbourly barbecue, for goodness sake.
Okay, Leanne Dazelle, you are proposing to raise rates by nearly 5%.
Well, that is the budget. And I have said that we are committed every single year to bringing that budget down. And every year we have managed to achieve that. So
No, you haven't.
we started at
No, you
7%.
No, you
We're
haven't.
now
That's-
below 5%. So, and we have to get lower still. So the pressure is going to continue. But every single year we've faced additional expenditure. The latest expenditure has been the chlorination situation, and it has been a direct response to government shifting the goalposts in relation to the drinking water standards.
Okay, John Minto.
They have shifted the grandeur. That's not
Okay,
true,
I'll come to
Darryl.
water
You
in a
don't
minute.
even know what you're
There's a
talking
raft
I'll
of
about.
come to water in a minute.
raft
John
of
Minto,
issues.
I think you've said you would look to increase rates at the rate of inflation.
At
Is
the
that
rate
right?
of inflation,
So
yeah.
what would you cut?
We wouldn't cut anything. Our policies are all cost neutral, and that includes providing free public transport, reducing our carbon emissions by quite dramatically with free public transport, and we
And
do
where
that.
does the
But
revenue
where
for
does
this
the
come
public
from?
transport? You should stand for ECAN. We don't cover public transport.
This is right here. Say in Auckland, the spending on public transport is
This is so
too,
unfair.
no.
Council
Let's
does
hear him out. Let's
not
hear him
have
out. Okay,
public
Okay.
transport.
I didn't
Mia, let's
say you
no,
did.
wait. I want to hear John's
It's a
answer to this.
negotiation.
Where does the revenue come from for this, so that you can
Right,
keep
well,
rates to inflation?
if I can do it without being interrupted, yes, but it comes from central government. At the moment in Auckland, public transport transport is funded 2-1 in favour of public transport as opposed to roads. In Christchurch, it's funded 3-1 against public transport. We want to rebalance that.
So your strategy is that you will get the money out of central government.
Absolutely, with a mandate.
And how would you do that?
You do that with a mandate from the people of Christchurch.
Okay, I want to come to the issue of climate change.
Well, sorry, can I just touch on the revenue earning? Because
Very
you've talked
quickly.
about expenditure. We haven't addressed assets. There's 8 companies within council. 3 are making $1, 5 aren't. There's an issue there.
All right, let's address that.
And September last year, council chose not to do a report on the market value of those assets.
Okay, so you would get a market
That needs to
value.
be addressed.
Are you saying that those assets should be sold?
CCHL has borrowed an extra $1 billion for the
Okay, one
last 4
second.
years.
Hang on. Are you saying that you would look to value those companies so that you could sell them down partially?
I would value those companies to identify whether they're being managed correctly. Now, if they're not, get them managed appropriately.
Well, some people
and
may
fit for
think that it's
purpose.
because can you give an assurance that it's not in order to sell them?
Correct. I give that assurance. If management are failing, the issue is fix management.
So no asset sales from you?
At this stage, until they're evaluated, no.
Well, hang on. You just said that it's pointless until after you've valued them.
You can't say you're going to sell something if you don't know the condition of them.
Okay, so you get the value.
But you do know the
value. Are you ruling asset sales in or out?
If that asset is being driven correctly by management and they're making a loss, yes, they'll be up for sale.
Okay, so
but if
yes
they're not,
to asset sales. Leanne Dalzell,
no, it's not asset sales on that basis.
Are you open to a conversation, I think you've said, about asset sales?
This is completely unfair because he has made statements about our holdings company, which is in fact it's the politically neutral company that sits in between the council and these valuable assets.
We're talking the port, we're talking the airport, and other assets.
We're talking the port, the airport, Orion. You know,
the other 3 that make $1,
and so
the other 5 don't.
Well, okay, and if you're saying that Enable is not going to make $1,
and City Holdings,
just let Leanne finish quickly, then I'll come to you, John.
Leaving all that aside, I want to know from Daryl, what is it about the continuous disclosure rules of the stock exchange that he thinks he needs more information from? We actually,
do you know the condition of those companies?
Have
you seen the management team?
I sit on the CCHL
board.
Well,
you obviously don't know the business.
Do know.
Why are 5 of them not making $1?
Look, there's a very good reason why.
Why is City Care not making $1? It's got a diverse number of businesses.
There's a very good reason why.
Why?
And the reason...
Why?
Look,
you know more than anyone.
Darryl, hang on. Just let her answer this and then I'm going to move to John.
You haven't even looked at any of the information.
Tell us what.
Look, if we hadn't have had the asset base that we had when we hit the earthquakes, I mean, prior to the earthquakes, we had the lowest rates in the country, and the asset base is what has seen us through.
Okay.
We have borrowed against our assets. That's how we've managed our capital program, and that's how we've managed capital
John Minto,
release.
I want to come to you for a response
overseen by
on
CCHL.
this issue of asset sales, because correct me if I'm wrong, Leanne Dalzell, you have said you are open to a conversation about asset sales.
There is no need at the moment.
Okay, no need
to turn around from a month ago.
No, hang on.
Where there was no asset sales.
Hang
now
on,
she's saying there will be asset
sales. If you
sales.
sell the assets, where will the money go? It will go to pay down the debt. So all that will happen is that we'll pay down the debt and then we'll have less revenue.
That sounds like a no. I want to bring John Minto in here. John Minto, your view on this, I take it, you're not in favour of asset sales.
No, not in favour at all. He kaupapa koretaki, it's a useless policy. Why would we sell assets which are bringing in income to reduce rates in favour of assets which are going to cost us money?
5 of them are bringing in income.
Okay, I've been told I've got the wrap, and I really wanted to get to climate change, but we'll have to save that for another day. So I do want a quick comment from all 3 of you on what can you offer people in terms of how you will prepare Christchurch for the impacts of climate change. I'll start with you, John Minto.
Well, we would reduce our greenhouse gas emissions with free and frequent public transport, and we would bring in a local zone in the centre of town to showcase Christchurch produced by local businesses and local cooperatives products and services, and that would be focusing on local production, local consumption, which is the way of the future.
Leanne Dalzell.
We're focused very much on getting that carbon footprint down, and as a council have endorsed a policy of coming down to net zero emissions in 2030, which is an enormous challenge for a large organisation, but it's something that we're determined to meet. We need to lead the way in this regard, and we're also looking at how do we prepare our coastal communities for the impacts of sea level rise. We think that enabling communities to take control themselves, to have an understanding of the adaptive management tools, the markers that they need to look out for so that they can plan for the future.
Okay, Daryl Park.
Additional to what's been said, bring on board the green space. We've got a concrete jungle in Christchurch. We need to have green space, and we need to have people aware what's going to be appropriate going forward to manage the carbon footprint.
Well, we've run out of time. Plenty more issues we could talk about, perhaps for another time. Daryl Park, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Minto, thank you very much.
Sure.
And Leanne Dalzell, thank you very much for your time for this Christchurch Mayoralty debate on Morning Report. It is now 8:33.
Now a quick update on the markets with Giles Beckford.
Thank you, Susie. Kia ora tātou. Wall Street found a little bit of get up and go towards the end of the